What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikiPikaPapa, and here we are doing what we do every single month on the channel. And we're going to be looking at the Sword and Shield era, and we're going to be looking specifically at the top 20 singles cards and the booster box prices and how they have moved month over month. And as you can see on this wonderful graph and all of the numbers there to the left, you'll see that we've been doing this since September of last year. And honestly, every month that goes by, I get more and more excited to be able to add more data points to this, because I think the more data points that we have, obviously, the more validity we have to it, and the more we're going to learn. And the other thing that I'm really excited about is, guess what? This exact spot in Sword and Shield, believe it or not, at some point in the future, Scarlet and Violet is going to be doing things very, very similar. So I think our ability to be able to track what Sword and Shield has been doing at a macro level, month over month, for the last, I don't know, 9 months at this point, coming up on a year pretty soon, is going to give us a whole lot of insight, not only into what's going on right now, which I think is really cool, but we'll also be able to layer this into Scarlet and Violet in the future and all the other eras to come. So that is what gets me most excited. Now, before I jump into it, I want to ground everybody in a couple facts. First and foremost, as you know, I pull the data for this every single month on the 15th. Whenever you're doing something like this, it's incredibly important that you are consistent with when you're pulling the numbers. So I pull this on the 15th of every single month. You are going to be watching this after that, right? So if the numbers aren't exactly the same, that is okay. This is more of a macro level view, how the eras are moving month over month, and that's the most important thing. The other thing I want to say before we get into this is, guess what? Yeah, Sword and Shield is down, but who cares? Okay, we all knew that Sword and Shield was going to right size itself after the incredible gains that we've saw, right? When you look at that graph there on the left that has all the numbers on it, I mean, you can see from March to April, right? Sword and Shield top 20 singles cards were up 6.77%. And then from April to May, it blew up. The top 20 singles cards were up 35.69% month over month. And then in June, it was up 11.38% higher than it was in May. I mean, the growth has just been incredible. Look at the graph on there, right? Like, we all expected this to happen. People were buying, which was driving the price up, and then it got so high that a lot of people were taking profits, right? A lot of people were selling, and that has caused the prices to come back down. But what I really want everybody to ground themselves in is, that's okay. It's not a big deal. Like, if you look at what has happened from September till now, these top 20 singles cards are still up 33% over that period of time. And the other thing, and I've been calling this out the last couple months, this just goes to show you like how awesome it is and the power of buy and hold, because you never exactly know what's going to happen in the hobby. So if you had bought in September up all the way until April, guess what? Those top 20 singles cards, if you had bought every single top 20 singles card in the Sword and Shield block in September of last year and you held through April, guess what? You were down 2.7%. But because we have seen all of these booster boxes sell out on the Pokemon Center, all of the alt arts have been getting really, really hot. Really everything's been getting really, really hot. You've seen it spike up. So what I'm going to say here is, you're going to see a lot of red in this video, but I don't want anybody to feel bad. I mean, still, look at the graph. Look at how high Sword and Shield is compared to where it was back in December, January, February, earlier on in this year. So still tons of gains that are there. I would not be surprised if they continue to fall down a little bit. All of you play chess while everybody else plays checkers, so none of this is a surprise to you. And still, Sword and Shield is going to be just fine in the long run. So don't get shocked when you see a lot of the red on these slides. It just is what it is, and it is totally okay and totally normal. If anything else, I think we're going to find some buying opportunities again in the Sword and Shield space. And I'm doing Sun and Moon on Wednesday, and wait till you see Sun and Moon. We've been talking about how all the attention has been on Sword and Shield, and there's been some great buying opportunities in the Sun and Moon space. And when you see the month over month Sun and Moon video, it's absolutely awesome, because there has been some big movement there. Now, with all of that out of the way, as I said, we do fun stuff like this all the time. So if you enjoy this type of data-driven approach and consistency, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you like what you see, give us a thumbs up. And if you have questions or comments, drop them down below. So now that we talked about the singles cards, let's look at some of the booster boxes. A different graph compared to what we've seen before, a much smoother, much more, I don't know, I won't say cohesive, but a much more gradual gain up and to the right. Now, we have seen some months where the price in the booster boxes have come down a little bit, and this month is one of them. But again, remember, everything sold out over the last couple months on the Pokemon Center. People were absolutely losing their minds going out and buying all of these booster boxes. So even seeing the booster boxes coming down just a little bit is nothing that we should not have been aware of, and we all had an idea that this was going to happen. What I'm most excited to track is how these booster box prices move over the next 6 months. Like, what's going to happen? My gosh, we still have Silver Tempest in stock on the Pokemon Center. So these boxes are certainly not in short supply, and it's going to be interesting to watch how these prices have moved. Now, again, if you look at it, if you started and bought all of these 12 booster boxes back in September of last year and you held till now, you would be up 35.6%. That is absolutely insane. Those are crazy numbers. And when you're thinking about where we're at in the Scarlet and Violet block right now, We've got some pretty cool sets that are out. Booster boxes are still in the $100 range for most of these sets. So this is a really awesome buying opportunity. Now, don't get me wrong. There is tons and tons and tons of time to buy these booster boxes. The window of opportunity is wide open beyond belief. We haven't even seen our first reprints or restocks or whatever you want to call them. So don't have to worry about it. Don't have to run out. All I'm saying is that if you end up getting some of these booster boxes, I think that there's still a very bright future ahead, even if they're in the $100 range right now. So with all of that out of the way, let's start looking at some of these individual sets. And again, as I said, don't freak out, because you're going to see a lot of stuff just like this. You're going to see a whole lot of red. And what was interesting to me was it wasn't just the alt art cards, right? It wasn't just the cards at the very top, not just the trainer gallery cards. We see a lot of red pretty universally across all of these sets, and that's because all of the cards have really been going up in price over the last couple months. So, I mean, you see tons of double-digit losses here month over month. It's interesting to me to see Silver Tempest. Now, Lost Origin was actually losing some momentum last month, and again, you saw on that first slide I showed you that overall the top 20 singles cards in Sword and Shield was actually up 11% last month. So now to see that Lost Origin has been down 2 months in a row kind of makes me scratch my head a little bit. This one doesn't, but last month I was like, I'm not sure what's going on with that. But I do love that card lineup. You know, you got the Giratina in there, you got a bunch of Pikachu cards in there, so I'm still a big fan of Lost Origin. Still think it has a bright future. Silver Tempest is a set I've talked about a lot in the past, simply because, you know, Silver Tempest was it was obviously the last full set that was released in the Sword and Shield block, and it never really got a chance to run. It never got a chance to kind of grow up and be itself. It was kind of thrust into the middle of this Sword and Shield insanity, and so then, of course, you know, the chase cards were going up like crazy, and then now it's part of the the prices dropping back down in the Sword and Shield era. So, you know, Silver Tempest is something that I'm really intrigued to see how it works itself out here over the next, again, 6 to 12 months is where I'm going to be really drilling into some of these. So Silver Tempest, I actually think there might be some really cool buying opportunities in there, right? Like you got the Lugia, which is up there, still clipping up near the $200 range, but it's fallen down from $200. And then after that, it really drops off, right? You got the Rayquaza there at $39, then it drops down to $26, $21, and then all the cards are sub $20 there. So when I talk about that, this is it. I mean, this is really a stunning card. So if you think Silver Tempest has a bright future, yes, this is still way up versus where it was in, again, December, January, February, but it has come way down off that $55 high, right? It's in the $38, $39 range right now. It does look like it's starting to flatten off a little bit, but if you think Silver Tempest has a very bright future, you know, there's no reason that this card can't gain some dollars down the road. So I thought this was a really cool one to call out, and now we're going to jump into the next couple sets. Next ones right here are Astral Radiance and Brilliant Stars, and you know, even with all of the craziness that's been going on, even with the last month where we've seen all of these cards drop in price, which we all expected, not a big deal. What was really cool to me was Astral Radiance still only has 4 cards under that $10 mark. And I'm going to be honest with you, Astral Radiance was flying under my radar for most of the year. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are much smarter than me when it comes to this stuff, so you might have been, you know, sitting there pounding the drums going, Astral Radiance is one of the biggest and the baddest sets there is, but it was certainly flying under my radar. I was way more focused on Lost Origin. I was way more focused on that Charizard set and Brilliant Stars. But when you look at it in its totality, Astral Radiance has a whole lot of power up there. I mean, it's got some big cards in there, and it's interesting to see the booster box price for Astral Radiance. Last month, we called out how close the booster box price for Astral Radiance and Brilliant Stars was, right? And then I did that whole video, I don't know, I think it was last week, where we talked about the best indicator for future price growth in the booster box space, right? And we talked about how Lost Origin, Astral Radiance, and Brilliant Stars, their booster boxes are so close in price right now. So it'll be interesting. It's a 3-horse race. We'll have to see where it all flushes out. I'll tell you right now, when you look at the average of the top 20 cards, which ended up being one of the biggest indicators from that video that we did, the average top 20 cards versus booster box price, the edge right now goes to Astral Radiance, which is really fascinating. And the reason I love Astral Radiance is you have cards like this. I mean, you think about it, you got a Palkia in there, you got the Dialga in there, like, you have so many cool cards. This is just a beautiful card. This is a card, it doesn't matter if you love Dialga or not, none of that matters. Like 5, 10, 15 years from now, this is still going to be a stunning card. And you see that it got really frothy, up over $50. It has been working its way down really hard, down below the $40 mark. I'm not sure how much farther it's going to go, but this card, no matter what, is an absolute stunner to have in the old collection, and I do think it has a very bright future ahead of it. Next couple sets right here. Even the big dogs are not immune from this, but I will say this. Even though the big dogs are not immune from it, guess what? The Moonbreon held on to more gains than any of the other cards at the top, okay? So any of those other big chase alt arts, you know, a lot of them are down double digits over month, but guess what? The Moonbreon's only down 5%, and that's to be expected. We've done a lot of looking at the Lovebirds card from Team Up. We know that the biggest and baddest card from the era, the biggest and baddest set from the era, they just tend to perform differently than everything else, and certainly the Moonbreon and Evolving Skies are exactly that. Now, getting off that, the Rayquaza's down 17%, which makes me really sad because I have the card, but guess what? That is to be expected. And again, when you look at this, Fusion Strike is another one of the biggest and baddest sets from the Sword and Shield era, at least in my opinion. And you see the totality of the top 20 singles cards are down 16% month over month. And then when you look at the top, I mean, that Gengar and that Espeon, they're getting really, really close in price, okay? And when you look at some of these sets, there isn't normally two cards there's not usually a 1A and a 1B, right? There's usually one card that kind of stands out from all of the rest when it comes to these sets, the Chase card, the big one. And to see these two cards so close in price, I mean, even if you look at the Moonbreon and the Rayquaza there from Evolving Skies, like there's a $400 gap between the two of them. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I'm not sure if that Espeon card is way up, or I'm not sure if the Gengar card is way down, or I'm not sure if we're just going to have two awesome cards because they're both visually stunning. I mean, I would not be surprised if they both end up being pretty high in the long run. It's just not what we're used to seeing, but you do see that this Gengar card is coming way down off that almost $450 high that we saw not long ago, coming in at $300 even. You know, I talk a lot about support lines on this channel, so it's going to be really interesting if this Gengar finds a lot of support at that $300 level. For whatever reason, these round numbers, they seem to be just where people tend to buy them. Like if this is in the 290s, people just have a different mentality versus if it's in the 310s. So it might find that support line right at 300, and I certainly think this is a stunning card, one of the best of the Sword and Shield block. So it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out over time. Next ones we're talking about is Chilling Reign and Battle Styles, and Chilling Reign is just such a stunner of a set. Chilling Reign is just a beast. I've talked about some of the sets from the Sun and Moon era where the cards just kind of transcend. They just, for whatever reason, they tend to have these huge prices to them, and people just love them. Well, Chilling Reign is filled with amazing art. We're going to look at a Chilling Reign card here in a second. But Chilling Reign, I mean, look at it. It has so many cards up over that $50 price point. There's actually 9 cards over $50. And even with all of the blood in the streets, again, look at this. Chilling Reign still has some cards that are up. It is still only down 5% month over month versus what you've been seeing throughout the course of this. You see Lost Origin, Brilliant Stars. You see all of these other ones that are down double digits. But Chilling Reign is only down 5% despite all of the stuff that's going on in the space right now. And then Battle Styles came down, again, only 6%, but I'm going to talk about this on the next couple slides. Not a really high jumping off point. You know, you see the Sleepy T-Tar at the top. That's down 12%, so pretty big drop there. But Battle Styles is going to be interesting to see because there is some sneaky good artwork in Battle Styles. So as all of these other alt arts are really, really high in price, it's going to be interesting to see if some of these Battle Styles, when you see the number 3 card in the set right there is up 3%, and then you see the number 5 card in the set is up 2%. So it's going to be interesting to see if Battle Styles finds a little love. Now, talking about Chilling Reign, a card that is not down is this right here. Look at this. This is a $116 card. Now, I think this card is visually stunning. It has everything that I love about Chilling Reign is encapsulated in this one right here, and that is why I love to call it out. Just an absolute stunner of a card. And even though the rest of the market is down, this card's like, I don't care. I am going to stay up at the $115 mark. Really, really impressive, and it's awesome to see that happen when everything else is heading the opposite direction. Now, we got to reset expectations, okay? When you look at the very bottom and you see the month over month change for all of them, you're going to see some lower numbers here, right? You see Vivid Voltage is only down 3% as a whole. Darkness Ablaze is directionally flat as a whole. But guess what? They started off with prices so low, there wasn't much room to fall, right? So these final 4 sets, the prices weren't there. There was no growth to lose. So we're not going to see a whole lot of changing going on here. Now, the Chunkachu at the very top, you know how much I love that rainbow card from Vivid Voltage. Back when it was down at the $100 price point, I was super bullish on it, and I'm excited to see that it only dropped 3% versus the broader market where we've seen a lot of other cards that have dropped. Heck, even that Sleepy T-Tar we just talked about is down 12%. So the Chunkachu's holding on in the 125 range. I just think a lot of people are going to be really, I don't know, really connected to that card because of the way it performed during the pandemic when a lot of people flooded back into the hobby, but we'll have to see. And you get a little bit of a gain at the top there from the Charizard, but not a lot to be excited about in Darkness Ablaze as a whole. I mean, we might see a day where there isn't a single card in Darkness Ablaze that is over $20, and man, that would certainly be sad. But speaking of my Chunkachu, I thought I would call this out. Again, you can see there wasn't long ago where this was in the $90 range, fighting right there at the $100 mark. We talk about support lines. I was just saying that, and then it popped back up, but you'll see it's starting to flatten out a little bit, but it's actually kind of heading downwards too. So next month I will re-highlight this card and we'll see what goes on with this Pikachu VMAX. Absolutely love this card. So we'll have to see what happens to it. And then rounding it out, the final 2 sets right here, we got Rebel Clash, we got Sword and Shield. Pika Pika Mama, I gotta call it out. She loves the Marnie card from Sword and Shield, which used to be the Chase card from Sword and Shield. But man, that thing has fallen out of grace, down another 7%, down to $37. Womp womp. Who knows where the bottom is gonna be, but down 7% at $37 right there. We're gonna talk about the Chase card, the new Chase card in Sword and Shield, and how that's performed because it's actually up 1%. But again, there's just not a lot to get excited about here because the jumping off point was so low. So yeah, Rebel Clash is only down 2% versus the broader market, which had a much accelerated drop, and then Sword and Shield is down 1%. The other thing for me is when you look at these booster box prices, I think there's a lot of premium already built into these booster box prices, so I don't expect a whole lot of movement from these moving forward. But the other thing that I like to call out at the end of this video is, listen, we have talked about the final, or the first 4 sets from Sword and Shield, and I think at this point there's no arguing, at least in my mind, when we think about the first 4 sets or the first 5 sets from Sword and Shield versus Scarlet and Violet. I certainly think Scarlet and Violet punch Sword and Shield in the mouth. Now we have a whole lot more from Scarlet and Violet to come out. We got Glory to Team Rocket. I am super pumped about Stellar Crown. I can't wait to do a video on that one. I think that set is absolutely stunning. So we have a whole lot, but also remember, Sword and Shield set the bar really high at the end. So no matter what, I think we're going to have another epic era in Scarlet and Violet, and I think Sword and Shield set the bar really high. So I got to go, and I'm going to shoot Sun and Moon immediately after this one. That way the energy is high and all this is fresh in my mind. So if you enjoyed this and you made it to the end and you want to see that Sun and Moon video on Wednesday, hit that subscribe button. If you have questions or comments, drop them down below. And as always, if you like what you see, give us a big old thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, and you have an epic one. Talk to you soon, everybody. Bye.